Hi guys, it's Brian. I I waited a while to post this video because I didn't want to post a video with me being in the state of mind that I was in at the time. This is about Kiss not performing at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. When I first heard this, I thought it was completely absurd, and I was very upset that Kiss decided not to do it, especially since Ace and Peter were the first people to come out and say, "Oh, we got denied the invitation to play with Paul and Gene." At that time, I was just like, "That's selfish of Paul and Gene, and how they should want to do this for the fans." As a Kiss fan, we all want to see that one time on stage. Um, but if what Gene and Paul are saying is true about how they don't think it was fair for only four members of Kiss to go in instead of the overall band. I can understand where they're coming from because as a Kiss fan, I did want to see Eric Carr, who is my favorite rock and roll drummer of all time, go into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame where he deserves because without Eric Carr, Vinnie Vincent, Bruce Kulick, Eric Singer, Tommy Thayer, Kiss wouldn't be around today. They would have made it to 40 years. But I have a special place in my heart for Eric Carr because of the drummer that he was and how phenomenal he played, but also his singing ability and the chemistry he brought to the band. Um, I I feel that I understand where they're coming from with that, if but if but where I was coming from was if it was just because they didn't like each other and Gene and Paul didn't want to play with them, I felt that that was wrong because you can put your personal feelings aside for 30 for what 3 songs and then rock and roll night party every day at the end. I mean, you can put your personal feelings aside just for that for your fans, especially since it's gonna be in New York. People were buying tickets because they thought they were going to see the original Kiss band perform together, and then all of a sudden they. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think Gene and Paul were going to say a daggone thing about it, but Ace and Peter forced their hand into getting a BS lawyer statement signed to clarify that they won't be performing at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. People paid we're going to pay huge sums of money to see these guys, see these men perform together. And I felt that it was wrong that the public was left in the dark. And then you want to talk about, well, we do things for our fans, but you couldn't do this one thing, and this probably was the biggest thing that you could do for your fans in the 40-year history of the band. But as I said before, I'm going to believe Gene and Paul when they say they won't want to perform because they thought it wasn't fair that the other Kiss members got left out. I didn't think it was fair personally either. I feel the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame are just putting Kiss in to get a little bit more to gain some respect and some credibility. Without Kiss and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, there's no credibility because Kiss is by far the biggest rock band in the world and has been the biggest rock band in the world since they've been around in '73. I mean, they changed the game when it came to live performances. So I feel that the Hall of Fame was trying to save face by putting Kiss in this year, but not understanding the full history of Kiss and not understanding the ins and outs that they committed one of the biggest crimes in music history by not allowing each member to be inducted in the Hall of Fame. One person that I always go to when I think about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and certain people not getting in, like certain members of certain bands not getting in, things like that. Ronnie James Dio did not go into the Hall of Fame with Black Sabbath, but Rob Trujillo, the bass player for Metallica, he got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he had only been playing with the band for I think I think he was with the band for not even 7 years, like 5 or 6 years, and he got inducted with Metallica into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So if you're trying to tell me that he could get in, but Eric Carr, Vinnie Vincent, Bruce Kulick couldn't get Eric Singer, Tommy Thayer, those guys couldn't get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Something's really wrong with that. Especially with Eric Singer and Tommy Thayer. They've been in the band for 10 years now. They've been together for 10 years. Eric Carr was in the band longer than Ace and Peter was. So I feel that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame did a disservice to Kiss. They just wanted to put them in the Hall of Fame. So that's one band they could scratch off their list of being ridiculed about for not being in the Hall. Now we need to work on Deep Purple getting in the Hall of Fame. We need to work on Dio getting into the Hall of Fame as a solo artist. And there's a plethora of other bands that we need to work on to get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And of course, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame isn't going to allow that to happen because, of course, like Eddie Trunk said, there are a bunch of elitists, and they don't know anything about music, and they underestimate the impact that certain bands have on people's lives. If you have any feedback on anything I just said, please feel free to contact me and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And I'll talk to you guys later.